they basically say, the Palestinians, that we have no right to live in this land, anywhere. See, we've been around here since the days of Abraham. That's almost 4,000 years. Jerusalem has been our capital since King David, over 3,000 years ago. And Jews have clung to this land for all these millennia. That doesn't count. This is occupied land. This is what they say, it's occupied land. I mean, the whole thing is a Palestinian narrative that flies in the face of truth, and they've adopted it.
Iran is always in the news, particularly now as we sit here. It is 2020, new year, new decade. You, Mr. Prime Minister, have been talking about Iran forever. It feels like it's been one of your main issues. Why is the world just catching up with this regime's craziness?
Well, for a long time, I had to stand alone because no one would understand how dangerous this regime was and how dangerous the world would be if the tyrants of Tehran acquired nuclear weapons, developed nuclear weapons. And I had to wage a long and lonely struggle to convince the world. I had to go to the U.S. Congress to argue. It wasn't an easy decision to go against the wishes of a sitting American president, but I thought that the future of my country, the existence of my country was imperiled. And so I had to speak up against this horrible Iranian nuclear deal, which basically gave Iran a highway to enrich uranium on a massive scale, which is really the critical phase of creating a nuclear arsenal of monumental proportions. So Iran would have an arsenal of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles, which could reach the United States. None of that is dealt with the deal. The deal doesn't deal with that. So I thought it was important to speak up. And right before the last election, I went to the two candidates, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And I said, if you get elected, you have to tear up this deal. And Donald Trump was elected, and he tore up the deal. On the way, I can tell you, before he did that, we sent our boys, our men, the Mossad, into the heart of Tehran. We found a secret nuclear archive that the Iranians were hiding. We took it and brought it to Israel. And I brought the material, 100,000 files. And the summary of that material I brought to the Oval Office, showed it to President Trump. And, he just said, I'm out. That's it. And he walked out, just as he promised. And, of course, right now, Iran understands that they'll pay a very heavy price for trying to develop nuclear weapons, and simultaneously for taking the money out of that horrible deal. They were getting billions and billions of dollars, and they began to build an empire under the same Qasem Soleimani that you hear about. In Syria, in Yemen, in Lebanon, they were taking billions of money from the Iran nuclear deal and putting, not to better the lives of the people of Iran who yearn for this betterment, but they took it to build essentially a Shiite empire, a Shiite Iranian empire, to bring death to Israel and ultimately death to America. So this was a crazy deal, and President Trump has completely reversed it. And I'm very glad that after years that I stood alone, there's someone who's picked up the torch. Wow. And it's great. It's a wonderful.
General Soleimani is dead.
Yeah.
How will that change the Middle East?
Well, I think, first of all, it sends a message of American determination and American strength. It's a deterrence, a very powerful one. Secondly, Soleimani himself was the architect and the generator of Iran's empirical of the Iranian empire. So he would go to Iran is predominantly Shiite. He would go into say a neighboring country, Iraq, okay, and he would find Shiites, create Shiite militias, commanded by Iraqi manned by Iraqi Shiites, but commanded by his own officers, Iranian officers. Same he would do in Syria, same he would do in Yemen. And he was beginning to choke the Middle East. He wants to conquer the entire Middle East, the Arabian Peninsula, and ultimately destroy Israel. He was beginning to push his forces right next to Israel in Syria. And we responded to that very forcefully. We hit back. But it's important to understand that Iran's expansion into this horrible empire that brings misery and death to untold numbers of people in the Middle East, by the way, Jews and Arabs alike, uh, Christians, Muslims, Jews, everyone. I mean, this man was an engine of destruction and conquest and subjugation. And his removal, I think, helps roll back these forces of tyranny. It's a tremendous achievement. Both strengthens American deterrence, but also pushes back Iran's aggression.
Here in the year 2020, Israel is hosting the 75th anniversary of the closing and the destruction of Auschwitz. 45 some odd heads of state are coming. How is this important to Israel and the messaging that'll come out of that conference?
Well, 75 years ago, during the World War II and the great Holocaust that ensued during it, we were totally helpless. We were like a wind-tossed leaf, and they took the leaves and put them in the ovens of Auschwitz, and there was little that we could do. We couldn't do anything. And when help came, it came too late. 6 million of our brothers and sisters, a third of the Jewish people, went up in flames. There was nothing we could do. Now, after the Holocaust, the State of Israel was established. And the attempts to destroy the Jewish people have not disappeared. Iran openly declares every day that it wants to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. And by the way, Israel has today a population of more than 6 million Jews. I can tell you that. I mean, we're now at 7 million Jews and 9 million population altogether. A very powerful country, ranked 8th power in the world. So we're only 9 million people.
Isn't that amazing?
The 7 above us all have hundreds or millions of people, or over 1 billion people. We're 9 million. Very powerful because of our spirit, our brains, and our hearts. And so we now have the capacity to defend ourselves. And I think the lesson of Auschwitz is, one, stop bad things when they're small. And Iran is a very bad thing. It's not that small, but it could get a lot bigger with nuclear weapons. And I think the first thing is stop that. And second, understand that the Jews will never, ever again be defenseless in the face of those who want to destroy them. These are the two things that I think are important.
The ICC is a subject that's come up of late, and I want your thoughts on that, sir, please.
Well, the ICC is the so-called International Criminal Court. Is supposed to be trying genocidal regimes that don't have proper legal systems against major atrocities. Now, they've decided that Israel doesn't have a proper legal system. We're the only democracy in a very broad radius, as you know. But here's the thing that they decided that will really roil up your audience. I mean, they've decided to declare war on the Bible.
That's right.
They say that if Jews live in the land of Judea, that's where Jews come from, that if we live in the land of Israel, we're committing a war crime. That's what they actually said. And officials, present and former, are going to be investigated for this war crime. The war crime is for Jews living in the Jewish land. That's it. And it is so outrageous. It's so defiant of history and truth and our common values and traditions, that I think that everybody should rise up against this. The U.S. government under President Trump has spoken forcefully against the ICC for this travesty, and I urge all your viewers to do the same and to ask for concrete actions, sanctions against the International Court, its officials, its prosecutors, everyone.
It sounds so bizarre that it needs a little bit of backstop. Help our audience. I mean, if you take this at face value, it sounds ridiculous.
It is
so. So how did a ridiculous narrative even start? Take us back a little bit.
Well, because the ICC has been taken over essentially by the Palestinians and the whole third world narrative that used to be there. It doesn't even reflect what's happening in many parts of the Arab world that are coming closer and closer to Israel. They're sort of stuck. 20 years ago, in the old review, and the Palestinians can do no wrong. Tell them whatever they say, we should follow. And they basically say, the Palestinians, that we have no right to live in this land anywhere. See, we've been around here since the days of Abraham. That's almost 4,000 years. Jerusalem has been our capital since King David, over 3,000 years ago. And Jews have clung to this land for all these millennia. That doesn't count. This is occupied land. This is what they say, it's occupied land. I mean, the whole thing is a Palestinian narrative that flies in the face of truth, and they've adopted it, hook, line, and sinker. And now I think they know they're not even being deceived. They're joining in the deception. And that's what they want, to declare war on any Jewish presence in Judea and Samaria and in Jerusalem. Yeah. They say, according to their idea, the Western Wall of the Second Jewish Temple, where Jesus preached and where he overturned the tables of the money changers and so on, the whole core of this history, this is not Israel. It's Palestinian. Can you imagine? It's not Jewish. By the way, I think Jesus may have been born in an occupied land too. He may have been born illegitimately too. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. It's absurd. Yet this absurdity is now going to be turned into actual policy of investigating Israel and Israelis for war crimes. And I think, enough is enough. People have to stand up and say, this is absurd. By the way, they also want to do the same to American soldiers, Israeli soldiers, British soldiers. They say that they're involved in war crimes. You see, they don't do anything about Iran. They don't do anything about Syria. They don't do anything about other cases of horrible violence, death, massacres. Nothing. The ones who are guilty are Israel for Jews living in the land of the Jews, and for Israeli soldiers, American soldiers, and British soldiers for defending innocent people against terrorists. They bring them to the dock. So it's a combination of both historical rights and the rights of democracies to defend themselves that they're attacking head on. And I think we should respond by attacking them head on.
Let me see if I understand this for our viewers. The UN in 1948 voted that Israel would be a nation born in a day, okay? Fulfilling prophecy from 2,000 years ago that the Jews would regather, okay? All right. So then the Arab influence started pushing into the United Nations. It almost seems like the International Criminal Court is trying to create law out of basically just pressure that the Arabs are putting on the UN, resulting in they're trying to be the Supreme Court of the world.
Yeah, well, I think they are. They're not exactly. They're next to the UN, okay? But what the UN, remember the UN declared Zionism as racism, and it took us 25 years to repeal it. It was such an atrocity. Now comes a parallel body that says we have jurisdiction over the United States, over Britain, over Israel, over all the democracies. And we will tell you if you committed a war crime. We can just give you a fake court, a kangaroo court with politicized judges, politicized prosecutors, who are representing the I would say a far left view, okay? Conniving with the Palestinians. And we're going to declare you out of the blue. We're going to say that Israel is committing war crimes for Jews living in the land of the Bible. Outrageous. We're going to say that Israeli soldiers who belong to the most moral army in the world, I would say none more, who are fighting terrorists, who are hiding behind civilians and attacking civilians. When we pinpoint our attacks against the terrorists, we're committing the war crimes. That's what they're saying. That's outrageous. The same about American soldiers in Afghanistan, fighting Al-Qaeda, fighting Baghdadi and so on. They're going to take them for war crimes too, and Britain and so on. So they're basically on a full frontal attack on the democracies, both on the democracy's right to defend themselves and on Israel's right, the Jewish people's right to live in their ancestral homeland, the land of Israel.
What do you want our audience to do?
Attack this.
Okay.
This is a kangaroo court. This is a fake court calling on your representatives, your governments, to apply an American law that is already there. And this administration has already brought that up. And I'm very glad and very grateful to President Trump and Secretary Pompeo for standing up with us. But I think what we want to do now is really accelerate the fight back. There is a provision in American law, which is popularly known as the Hague Invasion Act.
Right.
The ICC sits in The Hague in Holland. I don't think they actually mean that if people, if the court, the international court, decides to rule against an American citizen or an American soldier or one of America's allies, the United States has the prerogative to take very strong action against the ICC, the International Criminal Court, in The Hague. That's called the Hague Invasion Act. Now, you want to put teeth into the Hague Invasion Act, and you want to tell this court, we're not going to sit there and take it lying down. We're going to fight back, because this is just the beginning. Israel is just the beginning. The next target will be the United States and other democracies. But I think the fact that they're beginning with something so outrageous as to declare a war crime of Jews living in Judea, Jews living in Jerusalem, Jews living in the land of the Bible, it's so outrageous. It's so anti-Semitic. It's so, it's like if you actually said somewhere in the world, oh, Jews can't live in this place, people will be up in arms. They say, what is this? This is racism. This is ethnic cleansing. It's terrible. Here, the International Criminal Court, supposedly representing international justice, is saying Jews are not only excluded, not only are they, pushed out of a territory, they're pushed out of their own land, and we're going to declare it a war crime if they live there. It's so impossible. I'm sure people are listening to this, and they say, no, it can't be. No, it can't be. It can't be so outrageous. They're taking the Bible and stepping on it and just, destroying it, shredding it to bits. How could they do that? Well, they can do that if they think they can get away with it. And if we, collectively, we in Israel, you in the United States, we speak up against that and begin to take actions against the court, then I think they'll understand that they'll have to go somewhere else.
This is really an action against the biblical narrative of Israel.
Totally.
Hey, I'm Mati Shoshani, and thank you for watching the TBN Israel YouTube channel. We hope this video gave you greater understanding of Israel and her people. If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. We'd love to hear from you, so be sure to share what you've learned and ask your questions in comments below. And invite your friends to join the conversation.